Um, White privilege does exist, I believe, because like if you go through society or like to the stores or watch TV, like you notice for the most part, like shampoos per se are catered towards a specific color of hair or a specific type of hair. Or like on TV, when you turn on the TV, you see it's primarily people of a certain race, and that's just kind of how it's become. And I don't think it's anyone's fault. But it's important to understand that that's true, even if it's not necessarily hurting anyone. It is true and it's real.
Yes, I think white privilege still exists because people will tend to fall back into their old patterns of how they did it many years ago, of where their instincts were to choose a white person over a black person, and I think that subconsciously people still do this today without even realizing it.
I don't think white privilege exists in America anymore, but definitely like places in South Africa are still experiencing racism. Like people are living in like respectable homes, and as the black people suffer. So not in America necessarily, but around the world, white privilege is still a thing.
I do think white privilege exists. I have come across a lot of encounters when I feel like white people do have a more of like an advantage rather than a minority. For example, I have a lot of people coming up to me and just assuming that I'm not born and raised here and asking where I'm from. And even when I tell them, oh, I'm from Wilsonville, Oregon, they'll say no, but like, where are you from? So that's kind of something that is shocking to me, and I feel like a lot of white people don't experience that. They don't get random strangers just walking up to them asking them where they're from, because they just assume that being white equates to being American. And I guess because of my identity, people don't assume that I'm American. So that's one example of white privilege. Another one would be that a lot of time in like media, there will be like a lot of white criminals or shooters, and the overall white race is never labeled as a dangerous race, or they're not labeled as terrorists or any sort of like negative connotation to their race. But for example, for Muslims, because of this like negative view that is in media, they have any sort of action that they do will impact the view of that race. So yeah.
Yes, I do think white privilege exists, because why I think it exists is because like obviously racism was a thing at one time, and even though like maybe just like the racism, it's obviously not on the level that it was, but there's still remnants of that have carried on to like the present day. And I think those remnants, that's like what white privilege is, because like the idea that people have to be scared that there are racist people and like stuff like that, and like that they could be discriminated because of their color, and white people don't have that. That's the white privilege, that we don't have to be nervous about that, and we never have to think that if like something bad happens to us, it could be because of our race. It's not even a thought in our head, and we don't have to be like cautious around like cops and stuff like that and take extra precautions. And like I don't know, some people don't think that's like a bit like a major thing, but I think it's pretty like that's like what white privilege is, just the idea that we don't have to do these extra things that people of color might have to do.
I do not experience real racism in the school. I think of it more as a joke towards me. It's not every day, but it's most days where I can walk into school and either get called something I don't like to get called. But no, I don't think it's real racism, no.
Yes, I do see racism at our school, and I would not say like trying to be intentionally making like a person feel inferior, but I think that racism is treated lightly today, and that a lot of people use it in like a joking manner without even realizing the effect it can take on someone. And so I think that if people were more aware of how it can impact others, then there would be a lot less of that.
I haven't experienced racism firsthand, but I think there's always until, like, for now and in the near future, there will always be lingering effects of racism, even if people don't intend it to be directly at someone or intend to be racist. I think there's always going to be people that maybe think a little bit racistly, and it's going to take a while to change that. So I'd say I've seen it a little bit in our school.
I have experienced a lot of racism at our school, and honestly just Wilsonville in general. A lot of my peers have said a lot of racist things to me. I'd say there's at least been 2 occasions in every year that I've been in high school where I've experienced some sort of racism from my peers. I get some teachers have said really racist things to me, which is kind of shocking because you assume that teachers are kind of like your role models and that they're supposed to support you as a student, and so when a teacher says something that really is demeaning, you kind of get a bad image of them and it hurts the victims.
I think yeah, like that kind of has been like what past racism has become, because before racism was obviously just like a direct attack on people of color and stuff, or like black people and I guess other people of color, but now it's just become more of an economic divide based on past like racism and segregation. So like redlining stuff put people into like into like ghettos and stuff, and it just doesn't give you much hope of getting out. And now what that has become is, even when like segregation stuff become illegal, people generally stay in the same area. So as they move on, or as time went on, people stayed in the same area and the ghettos like remain the same. And now in those areas, like the schools aren't as good, there's more distractions and stuff like that. So it kind of has become, it's harder to like get out of there, and it's a pretty poor area. And in order to like be successful, everyone just like, you think you need money, and so to get out of that area you need money. But if the schools aren't very good, it's like, it's kind of like a trap, and it's like it just goes in cycles. People stay in the same area and aren't able to get out. So I think that's not direct segregation, but it's like it's a result of past segregation, and now it's just an economic thing. Like even like there are white people that are stuck in that system too, of just like the bad schools in certain areas, so you can't get out. So that it just creates this economic divide. But there's a lot of black people in that cycle of being in the ghettos and stuff because of past redlining. So that's how I think economics and racism integrate.
I do not think income inequality is a thing anymore, especially like I think everyone has equal opportunities. It's just people blame their problems on other people, which it hurts them more than anyone else. Like even I was watching like a news thing with Morgan Freeman, who thinks can I cuss? He thinks income inequality is like bullshit. It's what he said on TV, and I thought it was funny because I wasn't expecting that. But people still blame their race as problem with money when it has nothing to do with it.
Yes, I think our community is segregated, but it's not our intention. Like I think specifically at Wilsonville High School, there is a greater white population versus any others, and I don't think that's the intention of what they're trying to do here, but I think it just happens to be the area we live in versus a place in Portland High School where it is much more diverse. I think we just have a lot less of that here.
I don't know if I'd say our community is segregated, but in Wilsonville, I honestly think we just kind of like lack a bunch of diversity. Like, there's no like segregation, but there's just such a small amount of like either like black people or just people of color that it's just obviously like primarily white everywhere. So it's kind of weird. It's not like this in a lot of places, and so I don't know. Maybe it could be like a result of past segregation because like people are living in certain areas based on like redlining and stuff. But I don't think our community is segregated. It just lacks diversity.